welcome back to Motoring Millennials with Anthony Lucci and Zach Rothenberger. On today's podcast, we have a fellow Motoring Millennial join us. Ida Zetterstrom joins us from the Åland Islands in Finland.
Ida is a Scandinavian champion in the super street bike class, having both records and event wins under her belt in that category. In 2021, Ida earned her Top Fuel Dragster license, and for 2022 season, Ida is taking on the full European FIA Top Fuel Championship schedule in one of RF Motorsports' Top Fuel Dragsters. Ida, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, you're all the way from Finland. We appreciate you making time and coming on. So we're really excited.
Yeah, I think it's really great. It's kind of late here. I think it's like midday for you guys, but yeah, I think it's a good way to end the week.
Perfect. So Ida, as we get started, we know your racing career started in junior drag racing. How did that come about for you, and what got you interested in drag racing?
Yeah, well, I've been at the track since I was about 3 weeks old. My parents have been into racing. My dad has raced, and he has worked at events and worked with teams. So I was kind of brought up at the track, so that was the norm for me. And when I was 8, I started in junior dragster. My dad built me a car, and then we just went from there. That was the lowest age you could start when I was young. I think it's a bit lower right now, but 8 was the limit then.
So I guess, Ida, your career has really evolved quite quickly from juniors to super comp to super street bike, and now in Top Fuel. So can you kind of take us through that process? You know, you just covered a little bit on juniors. How about all the other classes? And were there any lessons that you took from all those classes and you're now using them in Top Fuel?
Yeah, I would say I've learned a lot from all classes, and starting out in juniors and, moving up from junior stock to junior modified that we have over here. I mean, just going through the ranks like that and then getting my super comp license, all of that kind of fell naturally when you're, evolving in the sport like that. And, usually when you see juniors coming up the ranks, you can spot them on their quick reaction times and just the knowledge of the racing. They know how the staging procedure should be done, and they have it dialed down. So the juniors are really a great way to learn. Then super comp, I didn't race super comp. I got my license. I did 2 events with a team because I didn't have a car of my own. So I licensed with a team and then did some stuff with them. So that was really fun, but it wasn't a big racing career for me in super comp. I had a few years where I didn't really have a ride. I went to school. I didn't really have the money to buy a car. And I really were looking at a few of the classes like top methanol dragster, something like that. And, it's expensive, and I was really young. And then actually the super street bike, it kind of came from my boyfriend racing bikes, and I got into that scene and was at the tracks with him racing the super street bike, and kind of fell in love with that class. It hadn't been bikes hasn't been something that I have had a goal of racing before, but as I got to know the class a lot better, I really grew to like it. And let's face it, it's cheaper and easier to have 2 bikes with you to the track than it is to all of a sudden bring in a race car. So that kind of got us feeling maybe we should give the bike stuff a try, for me too, because it's kind of an lower entry to get into that, and it was easier to just get 2 bikes with us to the track. We could have just a bigger car and bring them in there. You don't have to have a bus or a trailer or anything like that. So that's kind of how it started with the super street bike. And Top Fuel has always been my dream and goal. So the bike was kind of a sidetrack, which I absolutely loved, and that class is fantastic. But Top Fuel kind of always were the end goal for me. So kind of a strange path to take maybe between the classes. But yeah, I've learned a lot. And I think from super street bike, I've actually learned a lot that I feel that I can use in Top Fuel. If you're thinking about super comp, for example, it's a class that has to have a lot of skills to be a good rider in super comp. But the most adrenaline packed and the most action packed part of the run is the start, that's when you hold the trans brake, you go, you can really feel it, you have to maybe steer it a little bit. Then after that, when you have like a naturally aspirated car, it's the same if you run a naturally aspirated bike, nothing really happens on the top end. You can have to steer it a little bit, but you won't have anything huge happen usually. But with the super street bike, that's a wild ride from start to finish, because you have a boosted bike, there's a lot going on, you can have stuff happening all the way down, you can have a wheelie after mid-track, you can have tire spin basically anywhere. And that's kind of what it feels like when you're driving the Top Fuel. It's a wild ride from start to finish. You have to be on edge all the time, you have to listen to sounds, you have to feel how it's going to react, so you can kind of react to it before it has already happened. And the things that I got to learn in super street bike in that matter is really something I have been able to take with me moving into Top Fuel. And then also I would say like the mental state of it, because going into super street bike and having no knowledge of riding bikes before, it was a big step. And the mental part of that is kind of big. You have to learn things, that there's going to be setbacks, you have to just get back up there and do it again. You can't just come into a class and think that you're going to be excellent. You have to learn, you have to take the precautions needed to do it and work hard. And that's where I'm at right now. Again, moving into Top Fuel, I have to start over again to something that is not that familiar for me, and I have to take the right precautions to get really good at it and put in the work to really get the results. And I'm happy I've done it before, because I can recognize the feeling, and now I kind of know more how to do it and what will help me than I did when I did it the first time, if that makes sense.
No, you're definitely doing things the right way. We actually just talked to Antron Brown the other week, and it was funny how he said he started racing bikes too because he couldn't afford to all four wheels. So we all know.
Well, it's kind of true. I mean, and you still get, that was for me, bikes, even though it wasn't something I was used to, it's still so action packed, and the racing is just as tight. And if you just want the racing part of it, the need for speed, you want to go fast, you want to be good at something, then if it's a bike or if it's a car, for me, I'm up for challenge. So.
That's a great mindset. And the fact that you're able to leverage your experience running super street bike into Top Fuel, which probably a lot of people will think, how can you do that? But the way your mentality with it makes so much sense. And it takes a lot of guts to go. I mean, how fast is the bike, the super street bike? It's 6 seconds, I believe.
Yeah, the super street bike, I mean, we ran a quarter mile and I ran 688 as the fastest. That was 215 miles per hour. Wow. So if you're comparing it to a pro stock bike, that, I mean, in US, the pro stock bike are very well known. The pro stock bikes, they run kind of the same ETs, a little bit faster than us, but we have the higher miles per hour since we run the turbo bikes. So they have the naturally aspirated and we have the turbo. And then also, I mean, they run with the slick tire and the wheelie bars, and we run with a street tire and without wheelie bars. So it's a really different way of riding the bikes.
Yeah, it's really impressive, to say the least. And I mean, you talk about, I mean, you were the 2019 Scandinavian champ too, is that right? So, I mean, you adjusted pretty quick, I would say.
Yeah, that's 2019. Oh, it feels a long time ago now. but yeah, that was the last season. We actually had a full season before COVID came. So we were all set for the Nordic Championship or Scandinavian Championship. That was our goal. And then we said that when we have made a top 3 in that, we wanted to go for the European Championship. So we won the championship in 2019 and we wanted to go for the European, and then COVID hit. So
your bike's name, I got to ask, because my birthday is on the 13th. So it's Lucky 13 is the name of the bike. So how did you come up with that?
Yeah, the bike was actually called Lucky 13. Before I bought this bike, I had a bike that we built from scratch ourselves. And then for the 2019 season, I felt like we had to take a step up to be, with the game. And we found this bike in US, and it was called Lucky 13. And it was a great base for us because it was a fast bike, a good bike. It was made for the rules in US, which is a little bit different than the rules we have over here. But we could basically just change the the things we needed, and then we changed the engine setup. We wanted a different engine setup, and we run different fuel. But other than that, it was a great bike for us to just buy and take over here and fix, because we had 2 bikes in the team then, and we both worked full time. So to build a third one, it kind of felt like we wouldn't have the time to make it for next season. So, and it all came together really great. So for me, it was lucky 13. It was really lucky for me, and we won the first season with lucky. So that was always something that's going to be really special for me.
Well, Ida, it seems like you have a lot of luck on your side, because in 2021, you got your top fuel license running the fastest FIA license pass ever at 3.86 seconds. So kind of take us through, what you're looking forward to in top fuel, and how you're liking it so far.
Yeah, I'm loving it so far. It was, of course, it's a big change from the super street bike, and I have such a great team, because I have said that before, I'm a rookie in this, but my team isn't, and that's something that makes me feel very safe, and it feels very good to move forward, because I know that they can make up for what I lack so far, and I will just try to come up to their level, and together I think we can be a really, really great team. I have to say, like, for that pass when we did the 386, it felt fantastic. I had tire shakes in the passes before, and you want it so bad, and you feel, oh, it's a straight pass, it's going to be fast, and then tire shake hits, and you kind of and before that pass, they were just trashing in the pit to get the car ready. We didn't think we were going to get ready, so I have kind of had my mind set to, okay, we have to miss this pass. But then we got ready, in the lineup, going down, sat in the car, and instantly when I sat in the car, I had such a good feeling. When they start the car up, I felt this is going to be good. And yeah, it was. The pass felt perfect. The only thing was that the blow belt snapped a little bit after the 8 mile. The blow belt snapped, and it was kind of that, bittersweet when they came down and they said, oh, it's a 386, but it should have been the first 37 in Europe if this belt hadn't snapped. But we also said that, you can't get it all on one time, so we have something to look forward to for next season to chase.
It definitely sounds like you have a great team in place.
Yeah, definitely.
That's very important. So we got to ask, what's the bigger thrill? Is it the super street bike, or is it top fuel?
It's different. I think there's nothing that can be compared to Top Fuel. Top Fuel is, everybody that has run Top Fuel, they will tell you that there's nothing like it. The thing is, I do get more adrenaline on the bike, at least so far. Since the blow belt snapped on that pass, I haven't even been 300 miles per hour. So maybe ask me again after that. But still, the thing with the bike is you also add the element of, not fear, but it's kind of exciting every time you pass the finish line, you pull the clutch in, and it just rushes over you that you were, hanging on to something going 215, and you have the wind in like literally your hair, and then you're moving with the bike, and you don't really get that feeling in the car because you're strapped down. You feel very secure, while on the bike, when you pull a sky high wheelie going 200 miles per hour, you get the feeling that, oh, that was close. And it kind of that aspect of it, I think, makes the adrenaline rush that much like more, or how to say, on the bike. So that's what I can say so far, at least.
Absolutely. So yeah, can you, looking ahead to this season, can you walk us through your schedule and the series that you're going to be running?
Yeah, I'm going to be running the FIA series, which is the European Championship series. So we're starting off the year in May in Santa Pod, UK. And then there will be 6 races going Santa Pod, and then we have Sweden, we're going to Finland, Hockenheim, and then Santa Pod again. We're trying to also run like a shakedown event in Easter in UK to try and get some passes in and just get the team together working, which I think is very important, especially since I'm new to the team. So it's good to just get that connection to each other. And that's pretty much what it is. So it's a short season. The European season is a lot shorter than, for example, the NHRA season, but that's going to be the plan for this year.
I think, when you have a shorter season, each race means that much more, right? Like you can't have, like, I feel like it means that much more. Like you don't have 20 other races to make up for a mistake or things like that. So it's very competitive, I would imagine.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, it do mean so much more, because if you make a mistake in the first race of the year, that can be what it comes down to at the end of the year. Because if you have a season that is maybe 25 races, if you go out in the first run in one event, maybe it won't matter as much in the end of the year. But when you have 5 or 6 races that we do, then if you have 2 races where you have a first run loss, that can be a really big deal, and it's not possible to catch up all the time. So it really feels like there's a lot at stake every time you come to a race. And the thing with our short seasons, I mean, you can see it in that way that it means so much more, and it's really great that it's short. But it's also, for me, it's kind of, I want to be the best at what I do, and I want to get as many passes in as possible. And that's the hard part with the short season, because when you only have 5 or 6 races, you only have a very limited amount of passes in the car. And let's face it, not all passes is going to be great passes. So you're going to have passes where you learn a lot. But if you're looking at a season in NHRA with 22 races, if you're saying, oh, this rookie has 1 season in his bag, that's like a lot of seasons for us over in Europe.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the downside of it, that it is so short. And also the long off season. We have 8 months off season. So I mean, when you have been in the car, usually between every race there's 3-4 weeks sometimes, and just 3-4 weeks can make you feel like, oh, do I remember how to do this and everything, especially when you haven't done it that many times, that is actually, locked in. But when you have 8 months, then when you're starting to come up in March, and you're thinking, I haven't been on a racetrack since beginning of September, that's also like a mental game you have to work on, because in some way you will have to keep all your knowledge and your procedure, like in the car or on the bike, wherever it is, like fresh in mind for 8 months while you're not on the track. And like now I don't even have the car in my shop, since it's not my car. When I had the bike, at least I had the bike in my shop. I could at least sit on it a bit, and I could, get the feeling of it. I could try some starts and do it like that. So I think that's kind of a hard part for us over here in Europe. I think that some people don't think about how long our off season actually is, and how it feels for the riders to come back after 8 months and get in a car, and we should perform the first pass going out there. And there's a lot of dust to knock off after 8 months every year.
So what do you do to help stay fresh during that long off season? Is it a lot of like mental reps or a lot of time in the shop?
Yeah, when we had the bikes, since we built our bikes ourselves and everything, there was a lot of time in the shop. We did everything on the bikes ourselves. We built our engines, we did our chassis and everything like that. So for me, it was a combination of being a lot in the shop, working on the bikes, and also, working out, practicing so that I'm in good shape and I can have good reaction times because of that. Because usually if I'm feeling good, I'm in a good shape, then I also react well. But then also, like you said, mentally going through it in your head, trying to think about all the steps and the procedures to try and have everything locked down. Because even though it's not the same as doing it on track, at least if you go through it in your mind, you will feel more comfortable when you actually do it on track, because somehow your mind will remember that, okay, she has told me this before.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess us over here in the United States, we have no reason to have bad reaction times if we're getting that many more chances to be on the track than you guys in Finland. So I guess one other thing, Ida, before we move on in the podcast, what about the logistics of getting to each race? Because obviously you guys are traveling pretty far between races. So can you kind of give us a sneak peek into what that looks like?
Yeah, that was different for me when we had the bike, because then we had our own bus and we traveled to each event with the bus with our team. So it took a lot of time, and we do this as a side, like a hobby for us. So we had to take time away from our regular work to travel, and usually the travel part took longer than the actual race. So if we go to, for example, uh, Hockenheim in Germany, we had to usually start on a Monday and then we got there on a Thursday, or we go home after the weekend. Then it took 2 days at least to get home, and then 2 days, and then we had to travel to the next race, depending on how long it was in between. But of course, for me, that was in Scandinavia. Some races are closer. When we're going to Sweden, for us, it's only a 2-hour ferry and a 2-hour bus ride with the bus. So that was not that bad. But when we went to UK or Germany, it's definitely a big logistics thing because it's a lot of ferries also, and usually ferries are quite expensive when you have a bus or something like that. But then actually after Brexit, which we haven't raced in UK with the bike after Brexit, I have understood that it's even worse, because now there's so much paperwork you have to do to actually get into UK, since they're no longer like in Europe like that, or like in the European Union. So yeah, that's a bit of a tricky one. But now when I race with Runefjell Motorsport, they have the car and they do the logistics and we fly in. So for me, that saves me quite much time from travel, so I can actually work and then fly in. So that's going to be good for me. But yeah, basically for all the teams, there's a lot of logistics going on. And I know that it is also over in US. I mean, there's a long way to travel between the races. But then for us, you can also add the ferries. That's basically the biggest thing.
Yeah, no, that we don't have to do that over here, but that'd definitely be interesting to see either a trailer with those kind of vehicles inside alongside of normal other vehicles too. So that's really cool. It's something that I don't think a lot of us over here even think about. So would you ever consider racing full time in the United States on the NHRA circuit?
Yeah, I mean, that has always been the dream. The thing is, racing over in Europe is great. They're great teams, fantastic drivers, and we have some fantastic racetracks too. But the thing is that the season is so short. So I want to race full time, and you can't really do that when you only have a 4-month race season. It's really hard. And also looking at it the way that I want to be the best at what I do. And to be the best, you need to get seat time. You need to be out there constantly learning, having people around you can learn from. And if I'm only at the racetrack 5 or 6 times a year and the rest I'm at home, it doesn't really get me to where I want to be. I feel like racing in NHRA with some of the most experienced drivers in the world and the biggest top fuel field that you can find, that's something that will get you to have to push yourself to be better every time. Of course, I also have to push myself to be better over here. I have a lot to learn and there are awesome drivers, but it's also 4 or 5 races a year, and we don't know right now how many teams will come out after COVID. Before COVID, we were usually around 10 cars, which has been, then it's at least a good show. 10 cars that are putting on a great show, that are making, consistent runs, fast runs. Then it's really, really tight. But now when we don't really know if it's going to be 4 or 5 cars, I'm hoping it's going to be over 8 at least. But if it's only 4 or 5 cars and it's only 5 or 6 races a year, it's going to take me a long time to get to the driver I want to be. So that's kind of the biggest reason I really want to be over there. And also for the fact that I love racing. I want to race all the time. I want to be involved with this. I mean, when I race or when I work with racing, work with my sponsors, that's when I feel most alive. And to be able to do that, I kind of have to be in NHRA where the best are.
That's great. And it's really powerful to say that's where you feel alive. So you want to chase, it's good to chase your passions and do what you love to do. So that's when life to me means the most. Right. So,
Yeah, definitely.
so you mentioned working, and if you weren't drag racing, what would you be doing? Like if that wasn't your main thing, what would you be doing?
Yeah, well, it's hard to picture a life without drag racing. And I mean, I do work full time outside of drag racing. So I worked as an electrician before. That's my education. After that, I worked as a manager for a store and how to say, we did electrician and plumbing, and then we had like a store, and I managed the guys that did some of the installations there, and then the store part of it. So it's a small place where we live, so it's usually the companies do a lot of things in one. But I love that, got more into the marketing side of it, and then now I work full time with marketing, which is great. But I'm still having a really hard time to picture it without the racing, because it's still the racing part that gets me going. And if I wouldn't have the drag racing, I'm sure I would have found something else adrenaline filled. We do like going out with dirt bikes or jet skis or anything like that. But yeah, hard to picture it without drag racing.
Absolutely. So Ida, as we wrap up the podcast, we're going to do some rapid fire, some fun questions for you here. So growing up, or even today, is there a racer that you look up to or you kind of idolized?
I wouldn't say I've had one specific racer. Growing up in Scandinavia and, having my eye out for Top Fuel, names like Anita Mäkelä, that was really great in the sport. And she is great now. She is the European champion. And, that was always someone I looked up to. And I was hoping to be in the same position when I grew up. Then when I got a bit older, I also got to see more of the NHRA drivers, and there's a lot of people I look up to for different reasons. And I know I've looked up to Eric Enders for a long time because she is one of the greatest in the sport, and her ability to perform under pressure and always leave with a good light is just fantastic. And I know Alexis de Georgia, she is like one of the coolest girls out there, and I like her attitude, and she also has the passion for bikes. And also Leah Pruitt, I know I've looked up to her for her grind, like to get to where she is. And also she is killing it on the social media side, which is a big part of it. And Antron Brown has kind of always been a favorite of mine. I think mostly, or like a big part of it, is because he actually started in the bikes. So I would say, like, as I made my transition to Top Fuel, I kind of found myself thinking several times, like, well, if Antron Brown can pull it off, so can I.
There you go. That's a good way to look at it. And all great people too that you mentioned. So obviously we're in America, you're in Finland. So what's like a Scandinavian dish that you would recommend to an American who's never eaten a Scandinavian dish?
A Scandinavian dish. I don't really cook, so I'm the wrong person to ask. But for me, it's like where I live on a small island. My favorite is to get like a steak from a local farmer over here, or if we have like fresh seafood or fresh fish from here, that's you can't go wrong with that. So.
Well, like if you had one car to pick to drive on the street, what would that be?
Yeah, actually, me and my boyfriend, we bought our dream car a few years back. I have always said I wanted a 69 Camaro. He wanted a 67, so we compromised and got a 68. So we have a 68 Pro Touring Camaro, and we are like restoring it now, rebuilding it. It had a 540 engine in it when we bought it. Great car. Now we're actually LS swapping it, putting twin turbos on it, and yeah, a lot of body work to do before. So, but we have been in contact with Edelbrock and Comcams, and we're setting up a good thing there, and Sonar Rotor turbos. So it's gonna be a really cool project. So my idea was actually we will get it home in a few months when the snow is away, and then we'll start working on it. So my idea was to try and do like a YouTube series about it to post the progress. So hope that can be fun.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to seeing the progress on it.
I think
That's
it's going to be a really cool, really cool car when it's done. It was cool before too, but now we can actually really get it to where we want it. So I think it's going to be awesome.
And Anthony and I both have, I have a Camaro L with an LS, and Anthony has a Trans Am with an LS. So we're all about the LS.
I love it. Yeah. Then we get each other.
Right place.
Yeah,
Right
that's
podcast.
great.
So,
Awesome.
one other question. What's one location you want to travel to within the next few years?
Oh, good question. I would say I have a lot of racetracks on my travel list, but then also since we haven't really been able to travel a lot lately, what I'm having my eye on right now is that in March we are going over to Florida. We are going down to Clearwater Beach. We have been there several times. We love it there. So we will spend a few days in Clearwater Beach. Then we'll go to Gainesville to watch the race and meet up with a few our friends there. And actually my team is coming over from UK also to hang with us over there, or they're coming to when we're meeting up. So it's going to be awesome. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward most now before the race season starts.
Oh, that's awesome. Like Gainesville is always a great race to go to.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Nice. Well, Ida, thank you again for joining us on the Motoring Millennials podcast. Where can everyone find you on social media?
Yeah, well, if you search for Ida Zetterstrom or Zetterstrom, wait to know, you find me on most places. So on Facebook, I just started Twitter, so I'm new to that, but you can find me that. YouTube, on Instagram, you will find me under Ida Zetterstrom also, but my account name is actually Dragster FIA over there. So that's actually where I'm most active on my Instagram. So.
Yeah, and you have a lot of great content, and we're excited to see that Camaro build.
Thank you.
And everything you're going to accomplish in the 2022 race season. So best of luck, and we'll looking forward to following along and how you do this season. So thanks again for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited for the season, and thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And for anyone listening to us, you can find us online at Motoring Millennials on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And you can go to motoringmillennials.com to purchase any apparel. And we'll catch you on the next episode. And as always, keep on motoring.